Following the video I did about individual abortion records now being accessible via a public records request, thanks to an executive order signed by Indiana's new governor, Mike Braun, a lot of you expressed privacy concerns, as you should. This is a very dangerous, slippery slope that has the potential to endanger the safety of patients and providers all around the state. I wanted to go over some of the details of TPRs so we can understand their purpose and better understand what action steps to take next. So on the surface, these TPRs being collected by the Indiana Department of Health, that's not totally unusual. They are a public health agency. They are regularly collecting data from around the state on things like cancer rates and lead levels, information that will better help them make policy recommendations in the future. These TPRs are slightly different, however, because even prior to Indiana's total abortion ban, Indiana still had some of the strictest abortion laws in the whole country. And legislators put this TPR requirement into the law so they could track physicians around the state and make sure they were following Indiana's strict abortion laws. These individual terminated pregnancy reports, these TPRs, were accessible via a public records request prior to August 2023, prior to Indiana's total abortion ban going into effect. Because before the ban went into effect, there were about 1,400 abortions happening per month in the state of Indiana. After the ban, there were only about 40 abortions happening around the state each month. That is when the Indiana Department of Health expressed privacy concerns, and the Holcomb administration, the previous governor, supported their decision to stop releasing individual TPRs because of the information that's included. So let's go over that. On a terminated pregnancy report, there will be the name of the facility, the name of the doctor, the location, the age, marital status, race, and ethnicity of the patient, the number of previous pregnancies the patient has had, and the number of births and live children, the date and the method of the procedure, and the education level of the patient. If there are only 40 abortions happening around the whole state each month, you can see how someone getting a hold of this individual TPR could very easily figure out who the patient and who the provider is just based on this information. Even without the patient's name, they can figure it out. And these anti-abortion activists are zealots. They would absolutely dedicate their life to descending upon Indiana's towns with these TPRs to figure out who the patient is. And they are being encouraged and empowered by people like Attorney General Todd Rokita. He loves the idea of having a little army of investigators all around the state to bring back this information to him. And with the law that Indiana legislators are considering this session to criminalize abortion, that is how these TPRs will be used. That is why this executive order was signed, to lay the groundwork of abortion criminalization becoming law. So these people getting the public records request, these anti-abortion activists, can get these TPRs, they can find out who the patient and the provider is, they can bring it back to the Attorney General's office. And from there, Todd Rokita and his attorneys can go out to these patients and providers and make them prove that they correctly exercised the exception in Indiana's total abortion ban. If they cannot prove that they exercised that exception, or if Rokita thinks they did not follow the exception properly, he will criminally prosecute them for homicide. He would love nothing more than to dedicate the next 4 years of his career to doing that. We have to remember that in 2022, when Dr. Caitlin Bernard performed an abortion on a 10-year-old rape victim, Todd Rokita used that information, the physician's name, as an opportunity to publicly harass and embarrass Dr. Caitlin Bernard. It has been 2.5 years since that procedure happened, and Dr. Bernard and her family are still being harassed by anti-abortion activists. This kind of information getting into the hands of anti-abortion crazy people is very, very dangerous for abortion patients and abortion providers. Please reach out to your lawmaker and ask them to correct the legislation about these TPRs and make it very, very clear that these terminated pregnancy reports should be treated as medical records and medical data and not public records. You can go to iga.in.gov to contact your lawmaker.